what I was going to say. I had something brilliant to open the show today.
Jeez.
Marco.
That's a great way to start the show.
I know. Marco, what's good, brother? Good to see your friendly face as always. People, you get stopped regularly. You get stopped online. I get stopped online. I get stopped at the golf club on the regular. And it's one of the best compliments that I think you can pay to me if you ever see me in person and you like the YouTube show that Marco and I do. People ask me, and it happened today, man, you and Marco have been friends for years. I've met Marco D'Amico in person once in my lifetime. I've seen him in the press box, whatever, but like in studio, we did 4 hours of live radio together, and that was about it, right? And it's a great compliment because the chemistry, I suppose, how we riff off each other. It means what we're doing, Marco, it's kind of working. And look, I've gotten Marco to sit down. Look at him. He's sitting down. It's amazing.
No, I'm not.
I love it.
I'm literally standing.
You were bent over. You were bent. You look like you were sitting because you're short king.
It's like being on a, because my desk can lift. So could I sometimes, but it depends.
Whoa,
but my
easy
desk,
flex.
Easy. I know. But my desk can go up a little bit, so it's like I'm leaning on a bench, on a bar bench. So this is the way I like to talk to people. We actually did 5 shows together in the summer of 2022. 2023. I apologize.
We worked a whole together.
Connor was on vacation.
Yeah.
It was the week before you were going to go on vacation. Then John Still and I ended up doing the next week while you were gone. So yeah, when he says he's only done 5 hours of radio, I take offense to that. I actually remember. So I don't know.
Best time of my career. It was the best time of my career. I'll never forget it. That's Marco D'Amico. Hello, everybody. I am Sean Starr with 2 R's, and it is my birth name. It really is. Sean Aaron Starr is my full.
My wife asked me the same question.
Bro, the questions I get asked the most often, being in radio for as long as I've been in radio, is that your real name? What time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? Those are the 3 questions that I get. I've get all the time in over 20 years of doing this, right? And so the answer is around 3:30 in the morning, after Habs games on the East Coast during the week, and Sean Aaron Starr is my real name. It really is. It's on my birth certificate. That is my real name. Aaron with Aaron, by the way. Okay, we've wasted enough time. 3 minutes of jibber jabber. Thank you for liking. Thanks for being a loyal viewer, subscriber. If you're listening on our audio podcasts, thanks for the download. We're available
I don't know what's better here, Sean. The fact that your initials are SAS, or the fact that Aaron is your middle name.
Aaron, baby. Aaron.
Oh man, so much content is going to come from this, guys. You have no idea.
It's great, right? It's great. So thank you, everybody. Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, all your favorites, wherever you get your podcasts is where you can find us. Leighton Hudson won the Calder last season as Rookie of the Year. The question is, will his Montreal Canadiens teammate, Ivan Demidov, follow this season? Now, if you're interested in putting a few bucks down, the odds are in their favor. Demidov, the 5th overall pick from the draft, showed us what he can kind of do. We got a real good glimpse of this. So, Marco, let's talk about the race for the 2026 NHL Rookie of the Year. Where do you kind of slot Ivan Demidov in that race as we talk in late July?
Yeah. I don't want to be perceived as showing bias here, but I definitely have him at the top of my list, simply just because of what we saw. And what we saw could be his potential utilization down the stretch. 5-on-5, seeing him start on the second line, I think is understandable. But, if we have it the way we have it and the way we're going to talk about it, later on this week, if he plays on that top power play wave, anybody who plays on that top power play wave benefits quite extensively from playing with Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, and Lane Hudson. So I think that could be a big deal. I think the only player I've ever seen play on that top unit that hasn't really seen a spike in their points on the power play is Juraj Slafkovsky.
Yeah,
which is another episode, another day. So I think a guy like Ivan Demidov, especially if they play that diamond formation, I think that he's going to be able to pile in the points because that's exactly his bread and butter as he kind of figures out more of it because he already did figure it out quite well before the end of the playoffs. But that timing, the pacing, the space, gap control in the offensive zone, gap control in the defensive zone, transition, etc., all that, and then kind of moving forward with it. So I believe he would be the favorite in that regard because if you look down the rest of the list, well, outside of maybe one or two guys, most of them are going to be playing sheltered minutes. Right. So you wouldn't necessarily, they're not going to get the prime utilization that a guy like Demidov would get. But it's also worth understanding, like you talked about him being a 5th overall pick. He was a 5th overall pick in the same way that Vemichkov was a 7th overall pick of situation. Talent wise, we're talking about two guys that arguably could have gone number 2. Yeah. And in Demidov's case, probably should have gone number 2. But sorry, Chicago fans. But when you look at, I could hear the prospect Don crying from like Chicago. So you could basically pencil him in as a favorite. Absolutely. I think when we did this exercise last year with Lane Hudson, I kind of felt comfortable in saying that he was going to be one of the finalists for sure. Yeah. I don't think anybody could have predicted an historic season. But when it comes to Demidov, if he stays healthy and the utilization is there and he continues to work as hard as he seemingly has this summer, I'm very excited to see what happens because when you think of Demidov, he did not train last summer. He had an ankle injury last summer. So he didn't actually get that lower body reps. He didn't get on the ice in a regular setting until they got to the KHL preseason, which is, I believe, in late July, early August. Yeah. So you have a full summer. Like he didn't go back to Russia. He took like 1 week to go down south, came back and has been on the ice ever since. In fact, the Canadiens are learning a little bit of what Roman Rottenberg was talking about when he used to say, that guy spends too much time training. Like they had to lock the doors to the gym so that he wouldn't go in his second time. So
I mean, it's great to see a bunch of the guys in Montreal skating. Marco put it out on Twitter. Nick Suzuki's getting married. A lot of his boys are here. And I'll tell you, seeing last week, Patrick Laine, I'm a big buyer when veterans are here doing extra lifting, bro. They're veterans that have been long in the tooth in the NHL. They're here in July, late July, skating, practicing, line rushes.
We talked about this with Laine, right? Like contract year, also didn't get to train on the ice last year because he was in the program, had an injury. So
I guess he cares after all. I guess he does care. Yeah. To those that thought that he didn't, come on now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's. I don't really want to get into this because I don't want to fuel that kind of talk. If people have their doubts about Laine, that's totally fine. But I think we also need to establish like that he was not set up to be necessarily successful and still managed to get 20 goals last year. So
his decisions.
Yeah, it's a contract year. He'll put in the time, and I think we'll have lots of time to discuss him in future episodes as we get closer to camp, but he's definitely putting in the work. So a guy like Laine, just I think is getting pushed by the same kind of infectious love for hockey that you see some of these younger guys have. Demidov is right at the top of that list.
So let's continue with the rookies, right? Let's continue with Ivan Demidov trying to win the Calder for the Montreal Canadiens in back-to-back seasons off Lane Hudson's historic season last year that got him individual honors, right? So, like, we know some of the bigger names. I'm going to throw 2 names at Marco to get his point of view. Like, how deep is this race going to go? Isaac Howard, the 2025 Hobey Baker Award winner, right? Remember, he got traded from Tampa Bay. He scored 26 goals, 52 points in 37 NCAA games. Top 6 role with the high-scoring Oilers, maybe? And what about Easton Cowan, Marco, of the Toronto Maple Leafs, back-to-back OHL titles, playoff MVP, Memorial Cup, 28th overall pick, turning pro. How deep is the rookie class with these 2 names to go with some of the bigger, more well-known names in 2026?
Yeah, so Isaac Howard prefers to go by Ike Howard now. So all of his stat lines have been changed to Ike Howard.
See, look at this info. I love this info.
It's going to take time to get used to, but yes. To me, Howard is probably the player, given his situation, that could probably rival Demidov in terms of points. My 2 cents.
I think you are very big on him, man.
Yeah, well, it's not that I'm necessarily big on him. per se. I think he's going to be a fine top 6 player, but Connor McDavid has a knack for making top 6 players look like superstars.
Yeah, you're right.
And I'm not saying that some of the guys that he's played with in the past necessarily don't deserve the accolades that they've gotten over the years. I mean, I think you can definitely name a couple over the last little bit, but when you put a guy like Howard, I personally doubt he'll start with a guy like McDavid, right? Because they're obviously going to try to mess the lines up a little bit. But like, look at the rub that McDavid had on a guy like Zach Hyman, right? A guy that can follow, that can complete plays. He has the speed, he has the intelligence, right? So it's just a question of, can he follow? And
how much money does Ike Howard's dad have? Zach Hyman joke.
No, please not again. So when you look at a guy like Howard, just being able to play next to McDavid is a big deal. And the fact that they traded Evander Kane, the fact that Corey Perry is no longer there, the fact that they also traded Victor Arvidsson, it's going to give the opportunity for some of these younger guys, Matt Savoy, obviously Howard in this case, to get higher up in the lineup. Jeff Skinner's obviously gone as well. So like, there are guys that are going to move up. Put Coles in the same concept. So my 2 cents is he'll probably get top 6 minutes by some point in the year. I don't know that he'll start the season that way, and that may be what hurts him.
Well, let's see. It's all about earning, right? Nothing's given, especially for these young bucks, earning your way up. And we talked about that last week on this show about, Zachary Bolduc trying to earn his way and work his way up Martin St. Louis' roster. But, here's another name that we saw in the playoffs, right? Let's talk about Ryan Leonard for a second. We're talking about the 8th overall pick from 2023. He turned pro, played a sophomore season at BC, scored once in 9 regular season games once he became a Washington Capital, and then had 1 assist in 8 playoff games. And I wonder, we talk about earning your way up. It looks like he's probably going to be a third-line player. I don't know, the opportunities that will arise for a guy like Ryan Leonard, but how do you see him being a threat in terms of making this rookie class that much deeper on a good team? And he's a good, hard-working player.
Yeah, I think Ryan Leonard is an all-world talent. One of my favorite players from the 2023 draft. Just loved watching him at BC, and Jacob Fowler had nothing but good things to say about him, so I'll believe him. But when you look at the way that Leonard played, he was used in kind of a secondary role in the playoffs, and I think he was even scratched in the second round to a degree, or I guess left on the bench or shortened the bench. It's understandable. I mean, when you look at the top 6 in Washington, you have Ovechkin, Dylan Strome, Alexei Protas, Connor McMichael, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Tom Wilson, right? That's a pretty locked in top 6.
Who's leaving?
And then
right?
Exactly. So the only way that Ryan Leonard is going to get more ice time, in my honest opinion, is if someone grossly underperforms next season in that top 6 or gets injured. Those would be the only ways that he would get more ice time. He'll still get good second line power play time, I think, second wave of power play time. And I think he's going to have a phenomenal career. But it's the fact that Washington is so deep that even though he's a top prospect in the NHL, he just may not get the same opportunities that a guy like Howard or a guy like Demidov are going to be able to get in Montreal and Edmonton, respectfully. So I think if you line them up next to each other, he's not far off from Demidov in terms of overall impact. I think Demidov is a star player, and he's going to be, I think he's going to be better than Tom Wilson earlier in his career than Tom Wilson, but he's just not there yet. And it's a lot to ask when there's a team trying to, get back into the Stanley Cup playoff hunt.
And there are other rookies. Like I kind of want to recreate last year and put it into this upcoming season. So Zeev William, Zane Pareka, Matt Savoie, Gab Perreault, right?
Yeah.
So if we went into last year thinking, Lane Hudson could make a run, Matvei Michkov was at the top of mind for a lot of people, Macklin Celebrini in San Jose. Those were the guys that we're talking about. So let's replace those 3 names. We know, I agree with Marco, Ivan Demidov, if he's not the front runner, he's on the podium of guys that should be talked about with a real chance at winning a Calder, right? So let's put him comfortably in the top 3. You want to put him 1? That I'm kosher with that. Walk me through the top 3. Let's recreate Celebrini, Michkov, Hudson for 2026. What do you got? What do you think?
Yeah, I think Zeev Buium is someone I'd like to spend some time on because we talk about Lane Hudson. I mean, Zeev Buium, what an incredible freshman year he had en route to his draft year. He's a guy that I think is going to be leaned on heavily in Minnesota. Probably take over the first power play wave eventually
Right.
throughout the season. I don't know if they're going to give it to him right away, but definitely eventually give it to him. And I think he's a guy that's going to, really thrive playing next to probably a Brock Faber for many, many years to come. So I'd have my eye on him because, again, this is a guy that when he jumped into the NCAA, hit the ground running is an understatement. And
Right.
so I feel like he's a guy that is super intelligent, can adapt really well, a little undersized for NHL standards. When you're a 6-foot defenseman, people all start worrying. I don't think you have much to worry about with him. He's a very adaptable young man. And Billy Guerin, just over the moon over this player. So I'm quite sure that he's going to be given a lot of rope and a lot of opportunity to produce. And then we talk about Zane Parrick. Zane Parrick to me is the next defenseman that I feel could be a potential 70-point defenseman,
Oh
right?
wow.
Like I think not this season,
Yeah.
not necessarily this season. I mean, it's a lot to ask considering what the Calgary Flames did last year, but I think that when they're able to bring about some of the young players that they've drafted and they fully embrace this retool to a degree. I think that Zane Parrick is going to be one of those offensive defensemen that are always going to be at kind of the top of the league.
Yeah.
And so, some people may complain about his defensive work. That's fine. Similar discussions were made about Lane Hudson's defense earlier in the season, and he was able to improve. So I feel like Parrick could eventually do that. But I don't know that Zane Parrick will be given that opportunity immediately in Calgary, simply because you're going to have, if he's not traded by then, Rasmus Anderson is going to be put on full display for trade value,
Oh,
right? Like he's
no
going to
kidding.
get top power play usage,
Yeah.
top
Good.
line usage, and then you also have to factor in that they have other guys on that blue line. They just signed Kevin Ball. Obviously, he's not used in an offensive situation, but he's someone that you have to keep an eye on. You look at their veterans as well. You have Mackenzie Weegar in that on the right side. So you have to factor in all of this kind of elements, but I feel like he will get in, and I think he will get top 4 minutes earlier than some are willing to bet right now. I
Interesting.
just don't know that. Again, we talk about opportunity utilization and how that can translate to points. I think like Dustin Wolf kind of came out of
Yeah.
nowhere and really kind of built momentum. I feel
Yeah.
like Zane Parrick, if given rope, could be
Yeah.
that kind of guy in the same way like a Zeev Buium.
So
So
let's.
we've
Yeah.
we've identified Demidov, Buium, Howard, Parek, Leonard. I have two more names for you.
Yeah.
Two
Go
more
ahead.
names that I think people should watch out for.
Because I'll tell you
Demidov's
this one
former
quick thing.
teammate.
I'll tell you this thing quickly. When you talk about Ziv Buium, right? I just had to look this up to be sure. I had a feeling the NHL's been giving out the Calder since 1932, 1933.
Mm-hmm.
Defensemen have won the Rookie of the Year in back-to-back seasons only once.
Yeah.
62-63, Kent Douglas, Toronto. The next year, Jacques Laperriere in 63-64. That's the only time where a defenseman won the Calder. The next year,
Mm-hmm.
another blue liner won it. So, I mean, the
We'll
deck's
see.
stacked against it, but if a Bullion
Yeah.
goes out there and lights it up, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
The next two guys I got for you that really kind of stand out to me, Alexander Nikishin, who's the
Oh, yeah.
former teammate of Ivan Demidov back in Scott. This
Another
is a
big
guy,
defenseman.
another big defenseman,
Yeah.
but a guy that's going to be afforded a lot of room given the fact that Orlov left Carolina, the fact that Brent Burns left Carolina, right? So like you have a lot of open space right now for a guy like him, and they just traded away Scott Morrow. So in terms of offensive-minded defenseman with Boom, he's basically got free reign to go
Yeah.
because you have Slavin, you have Gostisbehere, and you have him. So
Yeah.
he's going to be, in terms of getting that top kind of usage. I think Rob Brindamore is going to bring him out slowly in the first 15, 20 games, and then you'll see where he goes. But I thought in the games that he got in the playoffs, he did not look out of place. And that was deeper in the playoffs than most rookies get into in terms of their first NHL game. And I thought he played admirably. And I thought, he brought the physicality. He wasn't shy. Obviously, he's an older player, right? Already in his early 20s. But I think 23, if I'm not mistaken, 22 or 23 by the time this season ends next year. So a guy that I think could surprise, a guy that I think if used on the top power play wave instead of Gostisbehere eventually could really be of an impact for the Carolina Hurricanes. So someone to watch for, because unlike Parik and Bouillon, there's less standing in front of him in terms of utilization at 5-on-5, especially, that could probably hold him back from getting those points, right? I feel like he has a distinct opportunity to rise into that lineup very quickly. And then the other player that I'd like to mention is Jimmy Snuggerud.
Yes.
Jimmy Snuggerud in St. Louis, they are very, very high on him. That's the only reason they entertained A, trading Zachary Bolduc, and B, taking calls on Jordan Kyrou, is because they feel like they got something in Jimmy Snuggerud. And again, same age as Howard, same draft class as Howard. In fact, I believe picked a couple of 10 picks from each other. But Snuggerud to me is just like that. He has that prototypical power forward in him. I think he was extremely strong. I believe it was the University of Minnesota. He played on a line with Matthew Nyes and Logan Cooley, if I'm not mistaken. And they were just absolute fire to watch on the ice.
And he was good down the stretch for St. Louis once he got into the. I think he had 4 points in less than 10 games.
7 games. Yeah. 7 games. Yeah. So it's just really strong overall player. Not like 6'5" hulking power forward, but a guy who's solid, strong power forward. And I feel
they're already talking comfortably top six role in St. Louis, like now, ready.
Because they've got other guys like Jake Neighbors that haven't taken the next step.
And
wanting to get tougher guys into their top 6. Because right now, in terms of hard hitting guys, they basically have Bushnevich and Shen, and that basically it, right? Thomas, that's not necessarily his game. Kyrou, definitely not his game. So, that's the kind of identity they're trying to bring in. So they may give this guy more opportunity than, say, Leonard would get in Washington. So someone to watch out.
Based on family names alone, that's an award-winning family name. I was a big Snuffleupagus guy for Sesame Street. I don't know where you come down on Snuffleupagus, but I was big. I still like him. Still got a place. Shout out. Shut up.
And it has to be said. It has to be said. These are the guys that we know are going to be playing in the NHL.
Correct. Year, right? Yeah. We know these guys. Yes.
So this isn't to be disrespectful to Matthew Schaefer or Michael Misa or Anton Frendel, right? Because those three could make their respective rosters. Do I think Matthew Schaefer has the goods to come out of training camp after only playing 17 games last season and just rip the league a new one? I mean, anything could happen with the first overall pick and go either way.
But, we'll see what happens.
Same thing with Michael Misa. Michael Misa would not get prime utilization. He'd probably be used on the second line as they continue the coupling of Celebrini and Will Smith on the first line in San Jose. So again, just trying to map that out. I'm just not necessarily confident that they would be at the top. But out of the three players, I feel like Schaefer would get a little bit of that opportunity because they traded Noah Dobson. So he may get power play time much earlier than he perceive. He may get more minutes much earlier than some perceive. It'll be interesting to see how it works because Romanov is ahead of him and Pelech is ahead of him in the depth chart on the left side. So we'll see how that's used. But in terms of offensive defensemen, it's Tony DeAngelo, Matthew Schaefer. Those were probably the two guys that take the first 2 power play waves.
So some stud defensemen in the last few rookie classes.
It's another stud class.
I know. That's Marco D'Amico. You can follow him at MN D'Amico with RG Media.